Picture the Western Front in the winter of 1916. The temperature hovers just above freezing, but it's not the air that kills you. It's the earth itself. Beneath the duckboards and sandbags, the ground is a living thing, cold and hungry, waiting to drain the warmth from any man foolish enough to lie directly upon it. The soldiers who survived multiple winters in the trenches understood a truth that most recruits learned too late. A sleeping mat wasn't a luxury or an afterthought. It was the difference between waking up with enough strength to fight and waking up hypothermic if you woke up at all. This wasn't theory debated in warmth-lit barracks. This was knowledge purchased with frostbite, pneumonia, and countless quiet deaths in the pre-dawn hours when the cold settled deepest into the chalk and clay. So let's take a moment to understand conductive heat loss. It's the process where heat travels directly from your body into whatever you're touching, like the cold, hard ground. In harsh conditions, especially during war, this type of heat loss can become a real threat to survival. The soldiers of the Great War didn't have modern R-values or thermal imaging, but, they understood the fundamental law through brutal experience. The ground steals heat faster than winter air ever could. When a man wrapped himself in a standard-issue wool blanket and lay directly on the trench floor, his body weight compressed the wool beneath him into a thin, useless layer. The dense, moisture-saturated soil, often mixed with chalk in the French and Belgian sectors, conducted his body heat away relentlessly. A veteran of the Somme offensive described it as sleeping on a slab of ice that never melts but never stops taking. The Earth's thermal mass was so vast, so patient, that no amount of topside insulation could compensate for direct contact. Men would wake shivering uncontrollably, despite being wrapped in multiple blankets, their backs and hips aching with a deep, bone-penetrating cold that took hours by a brazier to dispel. Faced with this relentless cold, soldiers began to improvise, using whatever materials they could find, sandbags, wooden planks, even newspapers, to try and insulate themselves from the unforgiving ground. It was a small act of defiance, really, a way to reclaim a bit of comfort and dignity in the midst of hardship. Resourcefulness became, almost like a religion in the trenches, and nowhere was this more evident than in the construction of sleeping mats. Standard-issue mats were, honestly, rare commodities, often reserved for officers or just lost in the chaos of retreat and resupply. The common soldier became, in a way, an engineer of survival. Sandbags, when empty and layered 6 or 8 deep, created air pockets that broke the thermal bridge between body and earth. Some men wove mats from salvaged wire and stuffed them with straw scavenged from abandoned farms. The stalks trapped air and, compressed far less than wool. In the quieter sectors, soldiers fashioned remarkably sophisticated pallets from wooden ammunition crates, creating a platform that lifted them entirely off the ground. The Canadian Corps became particularly renowned for their trench mattresses, constructed from burlap sacks filled with dry leaves, moss, or even shredded paper from German propaganda leaflets that drifted into no man's land. Sometimes, the very things meant to keep soldiers warm could actually make them more vulnerable. Damp bedding and clothing, they often led to illness, sapping strength and morale in the unforgiving cold of the trenches. The irony that haunted the Quartermaster Corps was this: they shipped thousands of blankets to the front while men died for want of proper ground insulation. A blanket, no matter how thick, couldn't solve the fundamental problem of conductive heat loss. Worse still, blankets became liabilities in the perpetually damp environment of the trenches. Wool absorbed moisture from the mud, from rain, from the fog that rolled in nightly across Flanders fields. A wet blanket wasn't just useless, it accelerated hypothermia, turning an insulator into a heat sink wrapped around a man's core. The soldiers learned to prize their makeshift mats above all else, sometimes sleeping with no covering at all, but with inches of insulation beneath them. They discovered what modern wilderness survival instructors teach to this day. You can survive a cold night in minimal clothing if your sleeping platform is sound, but the finest sleeping bag in the world won't save you from a cold ground. So what can we learn from the resourcefulness of those who came before us? Well, it's clear that adaptability, creativity, and a willingness to embrace unexpected solutions are just as vital today as they were in the past. By studying their methods and, applying these timeless lessons, the modern survivalist can be better prepared to face whatever challenges may come their way. The forgotten wisdom of those mud-soaked warriors echoes across a century into our modern preparations. When we pack for backcountry excursions or build our emergency kits, we honor their hard-won knowledge by prioritizing ground insulation. Their experience teaches us that survival is often about understanding the invisible threats, the silent theft of heat through conduction, the cumulative effect of small discomforts compounding into life-threatening conditions. These men, armed with nothing but observation and desperate necessity, reverse-engineered the principles of thermodynamics that now fill our outdoor manuals. If this glimpse into the ingenuity born from hardship has sparked something in you, a deeper appreciation for the craft of survival or the weight of history, then, subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Share this with those who understand that the best lessons are written not just in books, but in the lived experience of those who came before us.